Hi, this is Maria Hill from Sensitive Evolution, and welcome to this video about the emerging sensitive community. I want to start by telling you a little bit about how this particular community connects with the Emerging Sensitive Program, which is the big year-long lifetime program on culture and frameworks, and the times we live in, because they're all interconnected. If you watched the video on the Emerging Sensitive Program, you saw this chart. And this chart describes what I call the missing link for sensitive people. So essentially, sensitive people, because our nervous systems are very awake, connect with all the energy around them. And we tend to go looking for the big picture to try to understand it, which is fine. The unfortunate difficulty we have is that gets us only so far, and it doesn't necessarily help us manifest what we need to manifest in the world. And it's a bit of a struggle. Middle Earth, as I call it here, is where all the manifestation takes place. And it takes place according to whatever the cultural system is looking to do, whatever the cultural project is. And if that cultural project is one that is incompatible with us, we can really have a difficult time, and that's been true. Fortunately, things are changing. Our human culture, you could say, has run amok, and it denies nature and the needs of nature. It denies the cyclicality of nature. It's kind of stuck in harvest mode, you could say. It's because one of the demands of our culture is continued growth. We have to continually increase our consumption and our numbers in order to meet that cultural demand. And in order to maintain that system, a lot of effort has been put into creating this kind of stability, you could call it, so that we can continually produce this growth. And that's not something that people necessarily connect the dots on, but there has been a huge effort to prevent cyclicality, the typical ups and downs in life. You could say it's the march of the different seasons through the year. There is a time for planting, a time for nurturing the plants, and then there's a time for harvest, and then there's a time for restoration. Our culture doesn't want that process. It wants to be harvesting all the time, and that's unnatural. So you could say that our culture has run amok. And it's time for a rebalancing just out of necessity. Nature can't handle it anymore. It can't handle our numbers, so we have to do something. So Middle Earth focuses mostly on its own demands, and over time has become kind of centered on human life and denying the realities of other life forms on the planet. And that's an imbalance that needs to be rectified. So because sensitive people can connect so much more easily with nature, we actually, I think, have a role to play in helping culture reconnect with nature. And I think there are lots of ways in which we can be of service in that regard. Unfortunately, what happens in human life and in human culture is that we are encouraged from the time we're very young to connect our imaginations to the goals of our particular culture. And that has been materialism for all of us, since all of us are living in this current cultural system, and which has been around for quite some time. So we're going to have to learn how to redirect our imaginations and connect them with nature instead of materialistic goals if we're going to rebalance our lives with nature. So there's a huge change in imagination that has to take place if we're really going to reinvent life on the planet. And there are many people who are looking at that now and looking to how we can change our imaginations away from the goals of success, fame, money, status, being included, the whole thing of being in or out, that kind of stuff. We need to change our imagination to one that is inclusive, in balance with nature. So basically, our imagination has to become grounded. Right now, our imagination is kind of directed towards trying to escape the ordinary, and we're going to have to re-embrace the ordinary. So this is a big change coming, and the Emerging Sensitive program helps individuals understand the various cultural systems and the gifts they have to bring us, and release a lot of things from the past, reclaim energies, and create space to participate in this challenging time that we're living through. And the community is more about the discussion about that. So, one of the reasons why this community has come into being is to provide a vehicle for those people in the Emerging Sensitive program, so they can have discussions about culture and, how to reimagine their lives in the times we live in. And as I said, it's a place where we're going to have to rechannel our imagination towards nature and groundedness. There is a relationship between imagination and practicality that I think has been lost because our imaginations are generally have been directed towards escapism. Otherwise, we wouldn't have such a huge entertainment industry. And so we have lost our capacity to be grounded and live in tune with the flows of nature. So we're going to have to learn to connect our imaginations and our groundedness, and that's going to be a new skill that we're going to have to develop. And we'll be talking a lot about how we use our imaginations differently in this community. It's one of the big themes. It's also a place where we can discuss the challenges of being out in the world, no matter what our place is in it. So most of us have some connection with the existing system as it's being phased out and a new one is emerging. The current system is a great place to get skills, but those skills can be transferred if someone's interested in moving in a new direction. But we can discuss all the challenges of being out in our current world in this community. So there is a place for that too. It's an opportunity to grapple with and participate in cultural change. So one of the things we talk about right up front is the new commons that's being created. We have a video by the brilliant David Bollier, who's been working on this subject for quite a long time now, and he talks about reinventing the commons. The commons being that which we share. There is a structure that's being put in place to protect the things that we do share, natural resources and cultural ones, like libraries and art museums, educational institutions that have been created that serve us, all of those things that serve us as a group. We used to have a respect for the commons that has been lost, I would say, more so in the last 50 years than any other time. There was less of a conflict around that when I was young. And we certainly need to change our relationship with the commons again if we want to save the planet. So that video explains how we got to this place we are in, the consequences of it, and all of the different efforts going on around the world to change us back into a commons type of arrangement with life, including cooperative movements, localism, a lot of wonderful efforts that are being made. And when you see this video, you'll realize how far along we are in creating a new culture. And it does give a lot of hope. One of the things we do in the community is talk about some of these inspirational efforts. And it's important to understand not just these efforts that are taking place, but also the thinking behind them, because we are going to have to change how we think. And in changing how we think, we can also change how we imagine life can be. And so we will talk with people not only about their different things that they're doing, but also how they're thinking in a fresh way. So that can provide us with hope and also tools for creating something new in our lives. The community is also a place to work through the challenges and possibilities. Um, Sometimes you just need someone to bounce an idea off of. Is this workable? Am I missing something? That kind of thing. Um, Fortunately, I think as we rebalance, become more in tune with the natural processes in the world, instead of having to be so aggressive and big in our thinking, we can slow down. We can be very mindful, one step at a time, in how we operate, and so that will minimize risk. It will also be a pace, I think, that will be more suitable for sensitive people. But nonetheless, there are challenges in moving into a new cultural system, and working through those challenges together is a great way to minimize the risks and make sure that you're not missing anything as you move forward. The community honors the diversity in the sensitive world, so it doesn't matter what type of sensitive person you are or where you are in terms of your life stage. We try to support individuals making the right choices for them rather than trying to tell people what the choices should be. So there will be a lot of different ideas presented in the community that will help people access the change we're going through in a way that lets them figure out what's right for them. And it's also a wonderful place to meet other people in the world. We have quite a few people from around the world, and you'll have a chance to get to know them. And one of the things I really enjoy seeing is that so many people who have been in our program, the Emerging Sensitive program, become friends, and some even work together. And that's lovely to see that happen. So, back to the subject of reimagining our lives. The world is trying to imagine a new way. And it's very hard to do so because so much of our world is under private control. And what that means is that even if you do imagine something different, you may not necessarily feel that you can access the resources necessary to make a change. And that can be very hard, and it can create sadness. But the reality is that we have no choice. We have to address climate and environmental change. The emergency is real, and we all know that. And so the ideas around consumption and growth have to give way. And because that's what our current system is built on, we are going to need to shift to a system that lets us take care of needs and at the same time be much more mindful about resources and our impact on the planet. So it's going to be a big change. And we're all used to working within this culture in one way or another. So no matter who we are, we're going to have to rethink how we use resources and perhaps even become really creative about how we do that. And that's a good thing. We'll be learning to re-cherish our planet and each other while shrinking our footprints. I think this is a wonderful thing about this new emerging culture. There is an effort to up-level our care of nature and people, not in the way of not caring in terms of providing a lot of consumer goods as signs of caring. There is this attitude sometimes that you bump into that if you're cared about, that means you're getting a lot of stuff, and the people who have the most stuff are also the ones who are most cared about. I mean, there is quite a bit of that thinking, and so if you're not getting stuff, that means that you're not cared about and there's something wrong with you. That's not a great way to think, and certainly as a sensitive person, you've probably been on the receiving end of that, at least to some degree. I hope not too much, but to some degree. And so we're rethinking what that means. So many people don't really feel like they're cherished in this world, and certainly we haven't done a very good job of cherishing our planet and nature. And so we're going to have to rethink what we're doing, and that means that we're going to have to recreate community, make it stronger, more resilient. We're going to have to bring the ability to support basic human needs closer to local so that we minimize the cost of providing for people. We're going to have to create new work opportunities. They're going to be much more collaborative because in collaboration we can also minimize how we our resource consumption and including the risks we take. So collaboration offers us that potential. And ultimately, because we're not going to be forced into consuming, and hopefully when we do create products, goods and services, we're going to be doing so in such a way that they don't wear out within a year, forcing people to buy more. And just making that shift alone will help everybody to kind of breathe a little easier. People will feel safer that their basic needs are going to be met. Um, they can invest themselves into whatever their gifts are that they have to offer the world, and feel like they have a little more security because basic needs are being met. One of the really weird things about our current system is that we have a lot of needs, a lot of consumption, but most people don't necessarily feel that their needs are being met. In fact, often just the opposite. So if we flip that and people's basic needs are being met, there's a kind of security that comes from that that will free people so that they can invest their energies wherever they have something to give. And I think that's great for sensitive people. So I think it's going to be a time of very simple living, but also a time of great healing and ultimately more freedom. I think we can embrace this opportunity for sensitive people as we become more aware of what the opportunities are and develop new skills in collaboration, whether it's cooperative ventures, social entrepreneurship, healing activities, anything related to um, uh, changing injustices will be important. Healing the planet itself, working with restoring nature, all of these are going to be important activities. And so we can, we are going to need to develop skills in collaboration. If you have that, that's great. But this is a wonderful opportunity for sensitive people to find a place for their gifts. So we're going to be redefining our living goals from extreme self-expression, and self-expression is great to a point, but not if you have to have a McMansion, and we can't have over 7 billion people with a McMansion. That doesn't work. And we're going to become much more human scale in our living and our contribution, and that means that even our organizations are going to have to become much more human scale. Big organizations, big everything requires more resources because they're more complex. And the more complexity you have, the more resources you consume. So reducing complexity, but still being more mindful about consumption, is going to be a really good shift for all of us. It'll help us all to feel much better about the world we live in. We do have to reimagine our lives, and what we have to do is connect our imagination and our dreaming and groundedness, rather than harnessing our imagination to escapism and to winning and to triumph. There are a lot of ego-driven goals that our culture tries to connect with by harnessing our imagination to them. And we're going to have to connect our imaginations with nature, groundedness, practicality, and that's where our dreaming will be the most productive. There is a feeling in the current system that if we win, we haven't necessarily done anything for anybody. But when we connect our imaginations and our dreams with practical aspects of life, we can feel, even if what we did was small, that we actually did something of value. So we're going to connect our imaginations with creating value in ways that we haven't done for a long time. So I think it's an exciting change. I hope you're interested in pursuing it and joining us here. This is what the community does, as it is a community for sensitive people only. So we do cover the topics related to sensitivity, but with the primary focus on being out in the world. and dealing with the cultural shift we're going through. In addition to all the different topics related to sensitivity, all the different groups that we have, what we've created is a unique question of the month program. And that includes a movie that's provided for you within the community. And it also has, and we do the movie just so you understand that, so that you can have an energetic connection with the question of the month. We don't want to just talk about the mental side or the emotional side. We want to look at the issue from an energetic perspective, because for sensitive people, we can harness our imagination through that energetic perspective. So we want that when we talk about our question of the month. We also have articles or videos or anything that really adds to the exploration of the particular question of the month and provides some different insights, a different wrinkle, so to speak, so that your deep processing is satisfied on that question. And then we also have a discussion call later in the month related to the question of the month. And I provide some discussion questions so that you can give some thought to them before we actually have the call, and that will help you participate, but having given some thought to the material, and hopefully that will make it easier for you to jump in and share your voice. Our purpose on these calls is not to put people on the spot, but to share our insights and wisdom. And we will, of course, be introducing important aspects of this new communally oriented culture. I call it the caring culture. Some people call it egalitarian, others call it a green culture. It's all of those things, but I call it the caring culture because that's leveling up our capacity in that regard is going to be what we're going to be doing. And so reimagining caring is going to be an important skill, and developing the skills around that. That's all going to be important. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. So we're going to provide a lot of inspiration and around these new opportunities, and hopefully that will help spur your imagination and give you ideas for yourself. We also have 3 courses. One is on connection, and that helps you to understand your sensitivity and connection and start to think of how you might use it differently. We also have one on work for sensitive people. And then we have one that I call Culturescape. That is to help you give you a big picture around this cultural transition we're going through. So you have a big picture to hold on to that will help you work through whatever the issues are for you. We do have an app that you can use and a 30-day trial so that you can try out a full question of the month program. And of course, this is available for all members of the Emerging Sensitive program. If you're in a place in life where that's not the right thing for you, you can join the community as a just as a standalone service that's available to you as well. So I hope you found this illuminating and interesting. And please let me know if you have any questions. There's contact here where you can always submit any questions you have. And I hope I will see you in the program. I'm always interested in hearing the ideas and interests of other sensitive people.